2021 has been a year of momentous change in the electric vehicle manufacturing industry. And we've seen, seems like every day you get another announcement about an automaker going all in on electric. So we've talked a lot about things like Ford's F-150 Lightning, not so much about business models. And we're going to talk about Ford Plus with Sam Abuelsamid from Guidehouse Insights. So welcome to the interview, Sam.
Hello, Markham. Good to be back with you again.
Well, good to have you. And what can you tell us about Ford Plus? Can you give us an overview about what it is?
Yeah, you mentioned in the introduction, that there's been this evolution in the business models around electric vehicles, and this is actually something at Ford that started in late 2017 after Jim Hackett replaced Mark Fields as CEO there. One of the first things that Hackett did back in mid 17 was he established a group within Ford called Team Edison. And the objective of Team Edison was to take a step back and take a look at the whole entire business model around building and selling electric vehicles. That Ford had done some EVs up to that point. They had done the Focus Electric, which wasn't very successful, and they wanted to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to really be successful? And this is the outgrowth of work that has been going on for the last several years. The first thing we saw was the Mustang Mach-E, more recently the E-Transit and the F-150 Lightning. And Ford Plus is kind of wrapping it all together a little more, and continuing to expand their presence in electric vehicles. Part of the announcement last week during Ford's Capital Markets Day was that they were going to continue to expand their investment in EVs to $30 billion by 2025.
Now, my understanding is that Ford Plus is electric vehicles plus interconnectivity. They've got this cloud platform that's proprietary to Ford, and especially the commercial vehicles are going to be integrated very tightly into a whole suite of services and software and cloud-based analytics, that kind of thing.
Yeah, among the things that Ford has learned over the last several years is that it's not enough to just put out some EVs out there and expect people to buy them. They actually have to create EVs that are really targeted to the market to something that's really going to appeal to customers, especially as we eventually move to a place beyond having financial incentives to spur to jumpstart the EV market. Eventually you get to a point where, okay, these vehicles have to compete on their own merits, and how does a company like Ford build a business around that? So part of that is selling the vehicles, but also in an era where these vehicles may have less potential after-sales revenue in terms of service and parts. How else does the company make money and keep the business viable? A big part of that, as you mentioned, is connectivity, building services around EVs, but also expanding into, and making sure that, customers have access to charging and friction-free access to charging, all of these aspects of it. And of course, the commercial sector, which for Ford is particularly important. It's a major part of their business. One of the things that Ford highlighted during their presentation was that Ford represents 43% market share for light commercial vans and trucks in the United States, which is, and that's primarily the F-150, the F-250 Super Duty, and the Transit and Transit Connect vans. So tying all of this together, to create new revenue streams and meet the expectations of modern consumers for things like over-the-air software updates and new functionality over the life of the vehicle to keep them coming back. And they kept referencing this idea of the always-on relationship with the customer, rather than sell a vehicle to a customer, and then they come back 3, 4, 5 years later to buy another one. How do you keep that relationship going continuously?
Yeah, here's what really stood out for me, Sam. When you look at technology, like let's take the iPhone. I mean, the iPhone is really not a phone. It's a mini computer in your pocket that happens to make cell calls. And one of the reasons why people will pay $1,000 for an Apple iPhone, as opposed to the $100 or $50 that they would pay for a flip phone, is all the value that comes with it. All the access to data and the internet and apps and all of that. And it seems like what Ford is saying is, okay, now we've got an electric vehicle. How do we provide all of this big platform, and what else can we provide to customers? What value can we provide, particularly to commercial customers, that makes us a value? It makes us sticky, so that the customer is integrated and is less likely to leave, more likely to spend money on services. This, like as you said, is an entirely different business model from what they've had for the last 125 years.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. For the commercial customers, a big part of this shift is getting more of their commercial customers participating in the Ford telematics program that allows fleet managers to keep track of where their vehicles are, when they need servicing, when they need charging, all those sorts of things. And this is a business that Ford's already been building for a number of years now, but really expanding on that, and then extending some of those same ideas into the consumer sector as well. With what Ford is now branded as Ford Power Ups, which is going to be that's their branding for their over-the-air updates that bring new features and functionality to vehicles. First of which is going to be the new Blue Cruise hands-free driving assist system this summer, but also other things like improving the charging capabilities of the EVs. As they learn more about the vehicles and the way they're used, you can change the way that the batteries are and the charging is controlled, so they charge faster. So there's all kinds of possibilities for new services that could be either revenue generating, or if not, at least things that will keep the customers in the Ford in the Ford ecosystem and keep them coming back for new Ford vehicles.
That final question, Sam. I can't imagine that other competitors like GM and Volkswagen and Toyota and so on are doing the same kind of thing. Is Ford more advanced relative to their competitors, or are they playing catch up?
In some respects, they're playing catch up. GM, of course, was the first automaker to launch a cell phone based telematics system back in 1996 with OnStar. So they've been doing this for 25 years, and gradually building up their customer base, and what they call the attach rate. So the number of customers that continue to subscribe to the service after the initial trial period. Ford has been relatively recent to this area of telematics embedded in the vehicle, just within the last couple of years. So they are playing catch up in that respect. But when it comes to a lot of these services, these ancillary services, it is relatively new to pretty much everybody. Volkswagen, all the premium brands, they're just now starting to get into over-the-air updates and all these other potentially revenue-generating services.
Sam, thank you very much for your insights. Always appreciated.
Always happy to talk.